When to use Azure SQL Virtual Network Integration is an important consideration for organizations looking to secure and manage their cloud-based databases. This comprehensive guide will walk you through the key concepts, practical examples, and best practices to help you determine when to use Azure SQL Virtual Network Integration. First, it is essential to understand what Azure SQL Virtual Network Integration is. Azure SQL Virtual Network Integration allows you to integrate your Azure SQL database with a virtual network, providing a secure and isolated environment for your database to communicate with other resources within the virtual network. To determine when to use Azure SQL Virtual Network Integration, consider the following scenarios. If you have a multi-tier application with a web tier, application tier, and database tier, and you want to restrict access to the database tier to only the application tier, then Azure SQL Virtual Network Integration is a good choice. Another scenario where Azure SQL Virtual Network Integration is useful is when you want to secure your database with a firewall and only allow traffic from specific IP addresses or subnets. By integrating your Azure SQL database with a virtual network, you can configure the firewall rules to only allow traffic from the virtual network, providing an additional layer of security. Best practices for using Azure SQL Virtual Network Integration include ensuring that your virtual network is properly configured and that you have the necessary permissions to integrate your Azure SQL database with the virtual network. It is also important to monitor and audit your database activity regularly to ensure that the integration is working as expected. In addition to these best practices, it is also important to consider the limitations of Azure SQL Virtual Network Integration. For example, integrating your Azure SQL database with a virtual network may impact performance, and you should carefully evaluate the potential impact on your database workload before making any changes. In conclusion, Azure SQL Virtual Network Integration is a powerful tool for securing and managing your cloud-based databases. By understanding the key concepts, practical examples, and best practices, you can determine when to use Azure SQL Virtual Network Integration to meet your organization's specific needs. Key takeaways include understanding the benefits and limitations of Azure SQL Virtual Network Integration, considering the scenarios where it is most useful, and following best practices to ensure a secure and successful integration.